So this past Friday, I had the pleasure of co-hosting a clergy baby shower with two of my clergy friends from this district. Laura is the pastor at First United Methodist Church in Salado, and Travis, her husband, is the new pastor at St. John's UMC in Georgetown. Laura and Travis had known each other for many years, as I had known each of them for many years. And then about 2 years ago, Laura was appointed to follow Travis as the senior pastor at Salado UMC. In the months leading up to the change of pastors, Laura and Travis would meet together on a fairly regular basis to discuss the church and how they might best accomplish a smooth transition from his leadership to hers. And it was during those meetings, somewhere along the way, that something changed in the nature of their relationship. And they went from simply being friends and colleagues to falling in love. And they were eventually married early January of last year. Now, Laura is exactly 10 years younger than I. And Laura had never been married before. Not long after I adopted Hunter 6 years ago, Laura called me one day to ask how that had happened. You see, she was at the time single, herself not too far off from 40, and considering adoption or perhaps becoming a foster parent. Because like me, she had long wanted to have children. Well, that never happened. When she turned 40, after much prayer and heartache, Laura gave up that dream of children, deciding, I suppose, that being a single mom and the demands of pastoring a good-sized church were simply too much to do together. She didn't have the wonderful support system I have in my mom and sister to help her. And there was much grieving that accompanied that decision, that loss of a dream. But as we all know too well, we don't always have the final word. God does. So fast forward a couple of years, Laura falls in love, marries, and then Travis broaches the subject of children. Travis had been married before. He has a grown son from a previous marriage, and 3 years ago this week, he lost his then 19-year-old daughter, Brittany, to a tragic automobile accident. But Travis said to Laura, I want a child with you. And Laura confided to me that at first she was reluctant because, at her age, 42 at the time, there are no guarantees. And because she had already grieved that loss and really didn't want the risk of having to grieve it all over again. And so she really wasn't sure she wanted to go there. But eventually she did. And as you know from my introduction, Travis and Laura are expecting a baby in early July. Her name will be Erin. And it was such a joy last Friday at the shower to witness how much these two people already love and cherish this yet to be born baby girl. Much like God loves each of us even before we are born. A sentiment so eloquently expressed in today's song. In fact, it's this all-consuming love that God has for each of us that I think is the basis, the model, if you will, for the love parents and others have for the children God places in their lives. I love the way Psalm 139 talks about how intricately involved God is in our lives, even from the moment of our conception. How God knows us and loves us while we are still in our mother's wombs. Some would say that the psalm is written from a mothering God's perspective. And I like that. Because as you know, the overwhelming majority images of God in the Bible are of God as a father. But they're not the only images of God. There are also passages in the Bible in which God is depicted in very motherly terms. And I think it's important for us to remember that. For example, in one of the two creation stories, in Genesis, we are told that God created us in the image of God. Male and female, God created us in the image of God. And that suggests, obviously, that God has both masculine and feminine, fatherly and motherly characteristics. Now, because of who we are, being human, we like to anthropomorphize God. That means we kind of create God in our image. So we attribute to God human characteristics. But we know that that's just a glimpse of God. That God is so much bigger than anything our human minds can comprehend or even begin to understand. But we do that because it helps us get a handle on God, and it makes having that relationship with God seem a bit more personable. I mean, it's hard sometimes to just think about praying to God, the great Spirit out there who created the world and set things in motion and sits back and watches the work. So I want to suggest to you this morning that it's fine to think about God as Father, but it's equally okay to think about God as Mother. In fact, it's okay to pray to or address God as Mother, if that's something you're comfortable doing. It's not the norm in most Christian circles, but it certainly finds a basis for that in Scripture. Another day, a passage I like for Mother's Day is Matthew 23:37, where Jesus is lamenting over the errant ways of the people of Israel. And he says these words, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often I have desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wing, and you were not willing." Isn't that a great image of God's love, loving, and protective, God's pervasive love for all of us? Just last month I was reading an account of a terrible barn fire up in Alvarado, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's just a small community just south of Fort Worth. It's kind of a rural community that's beginning to grow, but there are a lot of farms and ranches in Alvarado. And on this particular ranch, the barn caught fire and was fully engulfed in flame by the time the firefighters arrived. After putting out the fire, they slowly began to make their way inside to survey the damage and see if anything had survived. What they found were dead chickens, dead sheep everywhere they looked. And it really seemed as if all of the livestock that had been in that barn had been killed by the fire. But then they reached the back corner of the barn, and there they found a badly burned mare named Bella and her colt, Butterscotch. Bella was burned over 50% of her body, but Butterscotch to a much lesser degree. Why? Because Bella had backed Butterscotch into a corner and then used her own body to shield her colt from the flames and the falling debris of the fire. The colt would recover, they knew, but they really didn't expect Bella to survive. And guess what? She did. Even with all of her burns, she survived, and the vets taking care of her attribute that to her strong will to live for her baby. Kind of reminds me of Jesus' lament for Jerusalem and that desire to spread those protective wings over us as a hen with her chicks. Another story, the local storms, the recent storms brought to mind was one I remember from 2 years ago. And I looked it up to verify that I had it right. But you remember the terrible F5 tornado that just basically destroyed the town of Moore, Oklahoma in 2013, about this time of year. I mean, it just totally wiped out entire neighborhoods. It leveled an elementary school and even the local hospital. One of the many tales of courage and heroism that came out of that tragedy came from that hospital. There was a labor and delivery nurse named Cheryl Stepker, and she was charged with getting the moms and babies from the second floor down to the first floor of the hospital where they would be provided for safety. I mean, this was a huge, massive storm, as you may recall, and it was slow moving, so they had time to kind of react and make preparations. So one of the patients she took down was a mom who had just less than an hour earlier given birth to a baby. She wheeled the mom and the baby down to the first floor, and as the storm began to hit, she and the mom placed the baby on their laps, and then they hugged, providing a human shield for that baby. And in doing so, they protected that baby from the building that was literally collapsing around them and the debris that was swirling in the air. The good news is, Mom, that labor and delivery nurse, and the baby all survived. But again, it's that example of that protective, selfless kind of love that we find modeled for us in God. Because, I think that these selfless, protective impulses that we see in both the animal world and in human life come from God. These mothering instincts, if you will, they come from the God in whose image each of us was created. The Psalms are Israel's prayer book. And even today, thousands of years later, they still express our deepest feelings, fear, and joy, and anger, and confusion better than anything we can come up with. Isn't it amazing when you think about it? To think about the psalmist sitting on a rock somewhere on a hillside, writing these words that call to mind the pictures provided by modern technological wonders of an unborn child sucking her thumb, swimming about in the waters of her mother's womb. It was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Think about this. This was thousands of years ago, long before sonograms. But the psalmist sat on that hillside and described perfectly how God creates us. This creative power of God's love. Now I want to say, as I said earlier, I realize that not all parents seem to be endowed with this selfless, protective kind of love. And there may be some among us who have been the recipients of a less than loving mother or father. Mom and I were talking on the way home yesterday from the Mother's Day luncheon, which, by the way, was wonderful as usual. Thank you for all of you who put that together. But we were talking about how not all parents are selfless in their love. It doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean they don't love. It just means that they don't know how to love in the ways that perhaps they should love. And I was talking about my own dad. And my dad had a lot of wonderful qualities, and he was a good man in many ways. But he had his faults as well. And one of them was that he was, I would say, pretty selfish. Mom would agree. And I don't think I realized quite how selfish he was until I became a parent myself. Because my dad would put his wants ahead of our needs. And I can't imagine doing that with my child. I will do without to see that Hunter has everything he needs, or maybe even wants. But my dad wasn't wired that way. And like I said, looking back now, after 6 years of being a parent, I realized just how true that was. It doesn't make him a bad man. It doesn't make me love him any less. It just made me realize that he did not have that selfless, protective instinct that so many parents have, that I think God intends us as parents or caregivers or grandparents to have. But you know, the good thing is even if we have parents who are less than perfect, and some have parents who are just downright horrific, we still have a heavenly parent who loves us more than we can imagine. And what the psalmist tells us in Psalm 139 is that God is with us at the core of our very being, deeper than anything the scientists can ever measure or understand. And the psalmist reassures us that no matter what, God knows us, each and every one of us. And that each of us are precious in God's sight. And also that any goodness or beauty or selfless impulse we have is a result of God's work in us. Right? It's not because of us, it's because God is working in us, loving us, allowing us to love others the way God loves us. So thanks be to God who loves us and accepts us and wants the best for us, just as a good mother loves and accepts and wants the best for her children, and perfect as we may be.